Mr. Chairman, welcome to your new role. I look forward to working with you on this. I want to make one comment for the record for our guest here today. You know, I think this is one of the most important meetings we could have. The timing is perfect, as the chief said privately before we started. I'm chagrined, though, and again, that with an important meeting like this, we're all double, triple booked, and so the attendance here is not, it's disrespectful to these witnesses. I want that for the record, and with your leadership, I know we can change that.
Well, thank you, and you raise a good point. There's like several other hearings happening literally right now. Well, but this is really important.
We're all double booked. We're all missing something else to be here, but I think this is absolutely critical. Chief, I'm worried, as an old manufacturing guy, I'm worried about our supply chain. I'm worried about our defense, our industrial base. I look at the F-35, though, and there are decisions that were made that you guys have inherited where we've got that supply chain spread all over the world. For whatever reason, social, economic, I don't know, but it certainly wasn't with national defense in mind. So I want to know, what can we do? Eric Schmidt said that if there's one bringing technology into the force, both in current readiness and in developing the recap that you guys are going to have to face over the next 20 or next 10 years. And by the way, Secretary, I couldn't agree more. I'm not worried about where we are today. I have full faith in you guys today. I'm worried about what China has said publicly about Made in China 2025. 25 and beyond, I'm really concerned about. So that leads to this question. Eric Schmidt headed Obama's appointee of the Defense Innovation Advisory Board, and he said this. He said that bringing new technology into force is the biggest concern. If there was one variable to solve for, it would be speed. In competing with these guys, they don't have the same constraints that we do. He also said, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but the requirement process we have in DOD is now the single greatest barrier to rapid technological advancement. And by advancement, he means not development, but deployment. So, sir, when we look at both recapping and improving our readiness today, where are we in terms of working with the industrial base and the supply chain that you guys have inherited to sort of get at this? And I'd like maybe both of you, I see your head nodding, Secretary, both of you may have a comment on this, but I think this is a #1 threat that we have right now.
Senator, I'm glad you bring this up because it is something that we're both really focused on and taking advantage of the new authorities that you have given us to move at speed. And let me give you a couple of examples. One is with the F-35. The Defense Department and the Air Force is terrible at buying software. So we changed the way we're buying software. We set up a software factory called Kessel Run outside of Boston to be able to do development operations, so rapid insertion of technology in an iterative way. We just this last week went out to Nellis, where there's a logistics system that supports the F-35 called ALIS, A-L-I-S, which is not very, it can't scale, it's got huge problems, it drives the maintainers nuts. And so we put together a team of Lockheed Martin, Air Force programmers, the maintainers on the flight line, and said, let's do DevOps and figure out where the problems are and try to rapidly get tools to the warfighter to fix ALIS. They named themselves, the new program is called Mad Hatter rather than ALIS. It's always the young techies that come up with something. But it's not only that. Let me give you a couple examples of where we're moving very quickly, and Eric Schmidt is right. We're actually partnering with DIUX in some of our space enterprise kinds of things. We now have we started in January a space enterprise consortium. We've got over 200 companies now involved. 150 of them are non-traditional companies. We have done 32 prototypes with greater than $100 million in total value of those 32 prototypes. The average time between solicitation to award is 90 days. We've given 4 awards just since January for rapid launch of small satellites, partnering with DIUX at $15 million to get small satellites up in the air and do it fast. We just broke into 4 program executive offices in our Space and Missile Systems Center rather than 1 all the way at the top of a $6 billion enterprise. And by doing that, we cut out 3 layers of bureaucracy in getting capability to the warfighter. And we set out 9 pace-setter projects to show how to go fast to acquire space systems. And those 9 pace-setters cut 19 years out of their acquisition timelines. And they have a number of other pace-setters in line saying, hey, we want to do it this way too. So we are using the authorities for prototyping and experimentation that you have given us. We are stripping out layers of bureaucracy. We have pushed down authority to program managers and given them the power to move quickly, to use competition. And the final thing I would say is we're partnering with our allies. We partnered with Norway on a satellite communications, polar satellite communications, where we had a 2-year gap. We closed the 2-year gap, saved $900 million by partnering with Norway. We're doing the same on another project with Japan. So the Air Force is trying to take the authorities you've given us and move forward to go faster and smarter on acquisition.
And, sir, just to add quickly.
Sounds like she might have prepared for that question, Chief.
It's a big deal for us. I mean, this is a really
big deal. I agree.
So Secretary Wilson and I hosted our 4-star conference last week, and the guest speaker was Eric Schmidt.
Good.
And we asked him to talk to us about how do we bring the future faster. And I'm often asked the question, hey, Chief, what is 9 years of continuing resolutions, what does that do to you? And I tell him it really wreaks havoc on our ability to plan for the future. But to your question, then I always follow up and say, but let me tell you what it does to our industry partners. So I have to go to a CEO and tell them, listen, I don't know what I'm going to buy next year, and I haven't gotten my money yet, but I'm hoping I'll get it in the last half of this year, and then I'm going to buy as many weapons as I can.
But if I don't, we're going to interrupt the current plan.
That's right, and I can't give you any projections of what the future looks like, so you need to keep this very sophisticated workforce occupied with this level of uncertainty, and so it goes directly. So I would offer to you, in addition to the Secretary's great points, is that the John McCain National Defense Act that you passed said such a powerful signal to airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines that you're behind them, and it sent an equally powerful signal to industry that says you can now plan your future and manage your workforce to get us what we need.
I'll give you one more to send to them. This year, we did something we haven't done in 22 years, and we didn't get 100%. We got to 90% funding by the end of August because we stayed here in August. You can tell your service people that were on the wall that month. This is not something that's never going to be done again. Yeah. We funded the military this year without a CR, and we know now what it's doing. Speaking of that, I asked an F-22. I'm sorry, I'm past time. I didn't.
No, go ahead.
They filibustered me on this. No, I'll come back and do that in the second round.
It's a good question.
No, I want to come back because I'm going to brag on the state of Alaska.
If you promise to stay for the second round,
I will.
Otherwise I'll let you go.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Well, I do want to mention that Senator Perdue and Senator Ernst have been leaders on this issue that he's just talking about. They're both on this special committee that's going to hopefully fix our budget problems, and we've made progress this year, and nobody benefits more than that than the military. Well,